I think it's awful, and I'm glad that something's been done about it.
To be racist, misogynistic and stuff like that, you've got to face the consequences.
You wouldn't really think he'd be making those kind of comments about other people.
Constituents of the former Minister Andrew Gwynne speaking there, shocked by his involvement in the latest Westminster scandal. What is going on inside the Labour Party? We'll discuss on today's show. You're listening to Bloomberg UK Politics. I'm Stephen Carroll.
And I'm James Walcock. Now, on today's programme, Labour frame themselves as being a change from the previous government's many scandals and sleaze. Now, whether that's true or not, it seems leaks of WhatsApp messages are now a feature of modern politics, regardless of what party you're in. Andrew Gwynne was the Labour Junior Health Minister. Now he's been sacked after making what he himself called badly misjudged remarks. The MP for Corton and Denton apologised after the Mail on Sunday published details of sexist comments about Angela Rayner, racist remarks about Labour MP Diane Abbott, and anti-Semitic language. And other members of this group are now under investigation too.
Yeah, Oliver Ryan, a first-time MP for Burnley, was another member of this group. He's also said the comments were completely unacceptable and said that he made some remarks in that group for which he has now apologised. But I wonder if many other people out there had the same not another one reaction that I did when I heard the details of this story over the weekend. You've got MPs, you've got leaked WhatsApp messages, you've got offensive comments. It all seems a little bit familiar, but then add to this the Labour Party's previous efforts to try and recover from issues of racism and anti-Semitism in its own ranks. It does seem like on this occasion Keir Starmer acted swiftly, something he's been criticised for not doing in the past. But the question remains, how damaging is this whole affair for the government and the Prime Minister and their agenda at such a pivotal time for the economy?
Well, joining us now with more on the situation is our political editor, Alex Wickham. Now, Alex, you've seen your fair share of parliamentary scandal and, dare I say, WhatsApp screenshots as well. How bad is this one for Labour and Keir Starmer?
Oh, it's very embarrassing. And as you say, Keir Starmer has sort of said to the public, look, I'm Mr. Stability, Mr. Sensible, the grown-ups are back in charge. And the danger for him and for Labour is that, you know, what are we, 7 months into a Labour government? Sue Gray, the Chief of Staff, had to go after 3 months. Louise Haigh, the Transport Secretary, had to go in the scandal. Tulip Siddiq, the City Minister, had to go in another scandal. And now Andrew Gwynne, OK, yeah, he's not a frontline Labour politician. He's not a household name, but he's basically been caught doing something very stupid and had to hold his hands up for it in a sort of classic tabloid story from the Mail on Sunday. And it just puts Labour in this precarious situation where what they told voters in the election about how the sort of turmoil of British politics under the Conservatives was all going to change once the good old decent Labour folk got in, well, you know, voters will be questioning that. And if they get into this problem where there is a plague on all your houses view from the electorate after 5 years, that is a major threat to their ability to have a second term in power. So, you know, you're always going to have scandals, little things prop up from time to time for all governments of all colours, but there have been quite a few already in this Labour government.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I mean, does this qualify, given that context, as a scandal? A junior minister has been resigned, OK, or rather has been sacked and been removed from the party. Another MP has apologised. There's an investigation. I mean, in a larger government, does this actually reach the bar as something that kind of is important?
Well, put it this way, I don't think we'll be talking about it in a month, and we certainly won't be talking about it by the next election. But, you know, it's the drip, and, you know, you saw under the Tories, usually what happens is it takes some years for things to all go wrong. And, you know, obviously by the end of the 14 years for the Tories, they had so many scandals, way bigger than this one, that the whole thing became completely toxic and the public had had enough. And, you know, I think we're some way off that for Labour. You know, they've only just started, and the public will give them the benefit of the doubt, I'm sure, for a little while yet. But, you know, with everything that has happened on their handling of the economy, with Rachel Reeves's budget, with, you know, tax rises, all the rest of it, there is just this danger that it's sort of the hypocrisy charge is always toxic for the left and centre-left parties when they say that they're going to do things in a fair and decent and morally upright way, unlike the awful Tories, as they would see it. If they don't meet those very high standards that they've set themselves, then it's a problem. And that's why Keir Starmer basically has to take a zero tolerance approach to all of these people.
Now, it's not just the public that can see these kind of negatives stacking up. It's also people inside the Labour Party, Labour MPs. How are they reacting to all this?
Well, I think there's just a bit of bemusement on the Andrew Gwynne story. Most people in Westminster would say their experience of Andrew Gwynne is that he's a pretty decent guy, not somebody that you'd expect to be caught in a terrible scandal. He was on the left-ish of the party, was never a full-throated Corbynista, but he certainly was a supporter of the Corbyn project, as was Keir Starmer, by the way. And, not somebody who was kind of a rogue element of the party. And so I think there's quite a bit of surprise that he would be caught saying some of this pretty bad stuff. The flip side of it, playing devil's advocate, I suppose, is that I'm sure there's nobody in the Labour Party that would like to see all their private WhatsApps published. And obviously some of the stuff Andrew Gwynne has said crossed the line of acceptable behaviour, even in private, and that's why he's resigned. But yes, there will be Labour politicians thinking twice about what they say written down.
We'll come back to that point in a moment, but I suppose just to put this in context, obviously the comments were pretty bad, I think is an understatement, tackling a lot of issues that the Labour Party has had problems with, anti-Semitism and racism among them. Is it worse because the Labour Party went on that journey, made efforts under Keir Starmer and the leadership of the party to root out anti-Semitism, which was a huge issue? I mean, is that going to raise fears both within and outside the party that perhaps these problems weren't as expunged as had been thought?
Absolutely. And Keir Starmer has to take an absolute zero tolerance approach against any anti-Semitism. There's no two ways about it. In the 2019 general election, where Jeremy Corbyn was the leader, anti-Semitism was so toxic for the Labour Party, and was a key factor in the devastating defeat that Labour had in that election. And Keir Starmer has devoted much of his time in opposition to trying to kick out any type of any person who had made any type of comment that could be construed as anti-Semitic, and that has to continue in government. And Andrew Gwynne making jokes about Jews is obviously just something that has to be beyond the pale for Keir Starmer, as he tries to show and can always show. It's not a battle that he can say he's won and it's over and he doesn't have to worry about anti-Semitism anymore. It is a problem, unfortunately, on the left of British politics, and always has been, that inserted element that anti-Semitism isn't taken as seriously as it should be. And yes, exactly, because of Labour's history on that area, there was no chance Andrew Gwynne could survive this.
I think something else that stands out in these texts is when they happened. It was 2019 to 2022 that, according to the press reports in the Mail on Sunday, that all this happened. The COVID period, everything went digital. So much of our politics now seems to be shaped by what's on WhatsApp. Are MPs worried that things they passed on WhatsApp might sort of start becoming public, that as tensions in the party grow, we might see more kind of scandals like this?
Yeah, and, the lesson from the Tory period in power is that when people fall out, essentially, nothing is off limits in terms of what they might have said privately in the past. And successive Tory politicians, goodness knows how many stories were leaked by Tories about other Tories who once were friends and then fell out, and started sharing screenshots of WhatsApp groups with journalists or whatever it would be. And that basically appears to be what's happened in this case in a local Labour Party WhatsApp group. And that is the danger of being a politician in the modern age, is in the past, when you fell out with a political ally, they might be able to brief the media against you as this is what they did, my word against theirs. And now people tend to have the receipts in terms of the WhatsApp logs.
How do you view this story as cutting through to voters? And I suppose, how does the Labour Party's response now matter in terms of making sure that it doesn't?
Yeah, they've got another problem to deal with in that there are other people in the Labour Party in this WhatsApp group, right? And even if including a Labour MP, Oliver Ryan. So far, some of the stuff that's been published about what that MP said was, again, ill-advised, but probably not as bad as what Andrew Gwynne posted. The Labour Party will be sitting this MP down and saying, is there anything the Daily Mail could publish about you in the days ahead that would be embarrassing to us? And if the answer is yes, I suspect that MP will not be long for this world either. But, there is a sort of danger ahead that they will want to get on top of. I mean, it probably won't run and run. It does appear to be contained to this local WhatsApp group, and the sort of the story has done its job in terms of getting rid of Gwynne.
But the next few months are actually really crucial for this government. We have workers' rights bills, look at AI strategy, spending reviews. This government needs to decide what it actually wants in terms of its policy, in terms of its narrative. As you said earlier, when things start to fall apart is when you see these kind of leaks spill out into the open. Are we going to be due for a sort of fight inside the Labour Party and a lot more messiness ahead?
Exactly. And this is the thing that has been quite surprising to me in the first few months of the Labour government is usually it takes a little bit longer for people to fall out. And we saw with Sue Gray as another example at the beginning, very hostile briefings against Sue Gray from very senior people in the Labour Party behind the scenes within weeks of Labour taking power. And a voter might go, for goodness sake, you've been out of power for 14 years. You've finally got your chance to do something, to do, enact all the change you've been talking about. And you've spent a large amount of the first few weeks briefing against each other like rats in a sack. And, that would probably have a point on that. And the danger is that, people could get a taste for negative briefing against people they don't like, and it just becomes the norm. And that's what ended up happening with the Tories. And I think Labour, and particularly Keir Starmer, will want to make sure that does not happen to them.
Yeah, seems a bit soon, perhaps, to be in a rats in a sack sort of situation. Alex Wickham, our political editor, thank you very much for joining us. That's it from us for today. If you like the programme, don't forget to subscribe and give it 5 stars so other people can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
This episode was produced by Tiwa Adebayo, and our audio engineer was Peter Nicolino. I'm James Woolcock.
And I'm Stephen Carroll. We'll be back with more tomorrow. This is Bloomberg.